Okay, so welcome to the Kansas Junior Livestock Show Lead Challenge. This is our third Listen and Learn session. And before we get started, I just want to go over a couple housekeeping items. So first, I want to remind everyone to remain muted while our presenter is talking tonight. She is going to have you engage in the chat some, so please make sure to respond to her questions in the chat throughout her presentation. And then second, I want to make sure you guys are filling out your participation survey after the session each night. Those links are set on the Kansas Junior Livestock Show website, and they should all be open at this point. So just go in, fill out your name, and answer a question about what you learned tonight. So today's session is led by Emily Grund. She works for our K-State Department of Animal Science and Industry as a recruitment and marketing assistant. So I'm going to turn it over to Emily for her presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, Brittany. And first, I just want to say thank you all for being here. I know it takes a lot of hard work to get on in the evening after school and working with your projects, gearing up for KJLS next week. And so I'm really excited to just get to sit with you guys and kind of talk about your stories, your journey of getting to where you are in the ag industry, and then how you can continue to take that forward in the next stages of your life. And so thank you for being here. And I just want to applaud you all for the hard work you're putting in at home after long days at school as well. So tonight I'm going to just talk you guys through kind of sharing your ag story. And when I went to college, I knew I wanted to continue to be involved in the ag industry. And I majored in ag communications, and it's often said, and you probably hear it a lot, is share your ag story. And to me, that just got, it was shared so much, I just didn't know how to implement it. And so I think there's so many ways. And so tonight I'm going to kind of walk you through some tips and tricks and different ways to meet different target audiences at different stages of where you are at in your journey and the age that you are, but also just some ideas on how to prepare yourself for in-person, because sharing your ag story doesn't just mean on social media. It can also be in person or in an interview or in a project talk, or maybe you do it creatively through posters or videos or different things like that. And so we're going to kind of just look at different ways that you can share your story and how you can continue to be an advocate for the ag industry, no matter where you're at. So first, I'm going to have you guys answer a quick question. I want you guys to introduce yourself in the chat if you can find it. I'm going to put my introduction in this chat, and I want you to think about one way that you've shared agriculture this week. So maybe it's sharing with a classmate, or maybe it's a Snapchat, or different things that you've done. Just share something that you think you've done this week that shares agriculture. So I'm going to put mine in the chat, and I encourage you to as well. I'll kind of, while you guys are typing yours, I'll kind of share what I did this week. One of the things I did to share agriculture this week, my animal science department, I get the opportunity to work with students and kind of help them figure out what they're doing after college in their career paths. And that's one of my favorite things to do. And we just started a podcast this week to let stakeholders, alumni, and prospective students know what our students are up to and some of the things that are happening around our department. So if you have any cool stories about how you shared agriculture this week, I hope that you'll put them in the chat throughout this presentation. Be sure to include where your name, sorry, and where you're from. So, and autocorrect changed my name, so I'm sorry for that. So just to give some background on my story, because we're going to kind of talk about the importance of knowing your story and your why. I'm just going to kind of walk you through, and my why, I think that kind of changes throughout your life. And so I'm going to kind of tell you where I'm at right now in my story. I live in Wamego, Kansas with my husband and two boys you'll see on the screen. And we have registered Herefords, and one of our favorite things to do is invite people out to our operation and expose them to agriculture. So some of my little boy, who's a second grader, or that's two, some of his friends at daycare, we invite their families out, we show them agriculture, and show them the things that we do each night to prepare our animals. My siblings live just 5 miles from me, and they're still in high school, and so they still show livestock at the state and national level, and so we get to be a part of that, we help the livestock judging teams. My husband competed on the K-State livestock judging team, so we help there. We also just have cattle of our own, and I'm always taking pictures and different things while we're out to make sure to utilize those on social media so that people see what we're doing in Wamego, Kansas on our operation. But one of my favorite things I get to do at work each day is interact with students. And you'll see these students up here in the Flying K t-shirts. Those are our ASI mentors. And they get to interact with students on campus and share their stories of their background in agriculture, but also in how they're involved in agriculture at K-State. And so I get to interact with these students and be a part of that. And it's just so fun to work with students, connecting them to alumni and different things. So it changes throughout your life and your journey. And I was in your shoes once. I was a 4-H'er. I was an FFA. I showed at the state level, and that's just what's led me to these positions. So your why evolves as you go through the program. And I think that's really exciting and just so many opportunities with that. Thanks to those that are sharing your story in the chat. We've had some people say that they've talked about state fair. That's awesome. To their classmates. You guys are the key to agriculture in your classrooms. So tonight, some of the key takeaways that we're going to talk about are the importance of knowing your why. And I've mentioned that a little bit. Tips on sharing your ag story and finding a platform to connect with these people. And that looks different for each age, where you're at. Maybe you're a junior, maybe you're an intermediate, maybe you're a senior. That could look different, and we'll kind of talk through some of those. And so these are just 3 things that we'll kind of hit on as we go through tonight's presentation. So first, we're going to talk about understanding your why. So some questions to kind of reflect on. What am I truly passionate about? You know, some of us, we are all working towards competing at KJLS. And so we're passionate about competing high quality livestock, right? But maybe it goes back to maybe you really enjoy the nutrition side or the genetics side of breeding decisions and different things. So just reflecting on that and taking the time at the beginning of each, maybe it's for each year, to reflect on why are you doing what you're doing. Yes, we all love to win, but we also love to compete and understand that why and the motives of what you're doing behind that. What impact do I want to have? Maybe you want to reflect on what impact you want to have on your classmates and bringing agriculture to them in the classroom, or impacts you want to have on younger 4-H'ers and mentoring them through the program. I know that was really important to me when I was starting out, is mentoring, and then I'm continuing. I have mentors now that I've stayed connected to, but also I see my siblings mentoring people, and then those people being a part of our operation as well. And so right now we have 2 families in our county that have bought livestock from us, cattle from us, and we continue to get to mentor them. And that's really fun. And that continues to evolve. So maybe it's somebody that you're mentoring right now that you want to have an impact on. And then what's your values? I really encourage you guys to think about this, because this is really the foundation of sharing your story. And that's in person, and also in person, but also on social media. And I think integrity is something that's really important in both of those, but just knowing your values and what you're going to build upon. And then why did I start this journey? For me, my family doesn't come from a long heritage of farming and ranching. I grew up involved in the farm equipment business, but I didn't have cattle of my own. So I kind of started my family on this journey. And so to me, it's just getting my kids involved and continuing that journey for the next generation. And my husband has a long history of his operation and continuing that heritage along. So reflect on those questions and see what's your why, because that is the importance of that is it gives meaning and motivation. It makes those long days worth it. It provides some focus and intentionality to what you're doing. And then it helps you tell your story. And we'll kind of go down that path today of once you know your why, how it makes it easier to tell your story. And one thing I kind of put at the bottom is what's unique about your story. I think when we get maybe you're working towards the interview competition at lead, and you're trying to think about what's unique about your story. I think that's really important. So when you go into those interviews, you're standing out compared to the people around you, and just be authentically you. I think that is so important because each of you come to the show ring with a different story and a different background, and every single one of them is important and valuable. So like I said, your authentic story, it helps bridge the gap between the rural lifestyle and the urban understanding. And I think you guys all probably see this in your classrooms. And agriculture is only 2% of the population now. And so in your classrooms, you are seeing students that are further and further removed from agriculture. And so it's important, like you guys said in some of these, you're telling your classmates about what you did over the weekend, or you're doing a project talk over or a research paper on something agriculture related. I think those are just small ways that you can tell the story in the classroom, but then also you can take that to social media and post those videos, or do a video like a day in the life of you feeding your animals and different things like that. And that just kind of helps bridge the gap, and so that others see what you're doing. And I think that's really important um, to help that understanding, even in rural communities. And so I have a story to share on this. Is my sister, she was very involved in basketball and in showing cattle, and she had to miss a practice, and she was going to get docked for it. So she put together a video to show her coaches what she does with her animals and what it's doing for her future career path. And they had so much more understanding about what she was doing. And I really encourage you guys to just do those small things, or bring your coaches or bring your teachers out to your operations and show them what they're doing, because they're removed from agriculture. Their parents didn't do it, so they don't know. So it's a good way to kind of just bridge that gap. So as we look at sharing your agriculture story, I encourage you to be authentically you, to find your why and tell your story authentically. Have that unique perspective. Connect with your audience where they are at. So I think this is really important in agriculture, because as we are so far removed, sometimes we can talk over our audience's head. And so it's important to ask questions like, where do you see agriculture impacting your daily lives? Or what are some values that you do to care for your food production? Maybe they like organic farming, or they care about environment, or animal welfare. Those are things you need to know, and make sure you can talk to them at the level they're at. And I think that's really important, so you don't talk over their head, or they understand the terms that you're using. Also, when we look at the social media side of things, make sure you're aware of your surroundings and be intentional about what you're posting, because that's out there for the world to see all the time. And so make sure that the atmosphere that your animals are in, or the feed buckets in the background and things, are all clean and kept clean. There's no poor animal welfare handling. Your facilities are nice and organized, because these are things that are really important to consumers, and what they make their decisions on buying products and different things. And then we'll kind of talk about your first impressions and how powerful these are. And I'll give some statistics on how powerful they are on social media and in person as well. So the power of a first impression: people decide quickly if they want to read more about you, whether this is in person or online. So how you introduce yourself, your elevator speech is really important. Incorporating your why into that elevator speech to make you stand out and be confident and be unique is very important. And so I really encourage you guys to kind of reflect on those questions as you prepare for your interviews at Lead, because that will really make you stand out when you go into that interview. Walk in with a confident body language, and your posture just shows so much. Making eye contact with the judge, facial expressions, greeting them with a smile, a firm handshake. In the first 7 seconds, somebody will have formed 11 impressions of you. So it's important that you make that strong impression right away. And then when we look on the online side, when we're talking about sharing our story online, people don't have a very long attention span anymore. They say it's less than a goldfish. So you need to make sure that your content that you're putting out there is very visually appealing. Maybe that's based on colors. So as you guys can tell by my presentation, I work at K-State. I've used purple, I've used gray. These are brand guided colors. So maybe you're working for your operation or your livestock operation and you guys have a logo. Make sure that your colors and different things that you use in your posts kind of reflect the logo and the design that you guys have. And then kind of just make a layout. Canva is a great resource for these things. It's a free online place to make graphics and things to post on social media. And there's a lot of ways to discover color palettes and use free photos and different things to share your story. And I really encourage you guys to use those kind of platforms to help make graphics that are appealing and that can catch people's attention on social media platforms. A couple other things I was going to add on this is another thing I think on first impressions as you're preparing for an interview, maybe for this is there's a survey that says 70% of employers check a candidate's profile picture before an interview. And so that's another thing that you might not think about isn't your first impression, but what you're posting on social media now at all the stages of your life, employers are going to look at that in the future. So it's important to be intentional and really think, why am I posting this? What is this portraying to my audience? So really reflect on the why of why you're posting something, because I think that will make a difference in the long run. So how to connect, understand what interests and motivates your audience, helps you present content that keeps them engaged. So as we look at ways to connect with our audiences on social media or in person, it's important to know how different generations like to communicate. And so I think if you look about in the baby boomers, they really like that, or the older generation, that in person, they go to their news platforms or their social media platforms to gather news, to just stay connected on family things. They really like to be greeted with a smile, a handshake, those types of things. As we look at Gen X and the baby boomers, they're still on Facebook a lot, some Instagram and YouTube. That's also where they like long form content. But as we look at like the generation you all are in, or the generation below the alpha generation, TikTok and Instagram and that short form videos are how you guys all gather information. And so these are different ways you can share your story. And I think if you're looking for that social media audience, I think that the TikTok, the Instagram, those are some good short-term videos that you can put together, those day in the life, different type of videos. But maybe if you're just wanting, maybe you really like to write, and that's a good way to interact with that older generation. Or maybe you really like the interviewing, and so interacting them with those or focusing on your interpersonal skills are important. So Gen Z, we're going to focus on that. Also incorporate some of that alpha generation. TikTok, Instagram. A report by HubSpot says 72% of Gen Z prefers videos as their favorite way to learn new products. And so as consumers start looking to agriculture to learn about their products, it's important to know that the way to capture them is through video. And so this kind of is just a chart that shows that TikTok and that Instagram reel is a good way to continue to push out information about agriculture, and anything you can do with high quality photos and those short video clips and combining those into a reel or different things like that is a good way to just capture the attention of your generation. So I hope this works, but I was gonna kind of walk us through this reel. And oops. walk us through this reel, and we'll kind of talk about some of the key points of making that engaging content for consumers to see on Instagram. And this is from an operation down in Texas, and he kind of walks through his family's history. And so I'll play it for us, and we'll kind of talk through these points of what makes this reel stand out and what's some key things that are important when posting a reel on TikTok or Instagram. Okay. So if there's anything that stands out to you, make sure to just drop it in the chat. What really stood out to you in this video? What grabbed your attention? I'd love to hear it from you, but I'm going to just walk through some of the things that are really important when creating a reel to grab the attention of the audience within those first seconds, like we talked about on the first impression, to grab their attention and make them want to continue to engage with your content. So first is to keep it short and sweet. Aim for that 15 to 30 seconds mark. So if you're making a reel, make sure you're staying in within that time frame. That allows you to hook your audience within the first 3 seconds of them interacting with your content. The second thing is to tell your story. Use a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I think when he walks you through like his grandfather and then talking about what they're doing now, that really just tells the story. But it also just shows the history of their operation. And I think that's really unique, is walking people through the story and seeing like the black and white to the new. I think that really grabs your attention and makes it memorable and something that you want to look back on. The next one is highlight a key moment. And I think he does this throughout, talking about his family's involvement to this day and the history of when it started. And that's very unique. And I love the music behind this. You can tell it's very authentic. Multiple generations on the farm, very unique to their operation. There's intentionality put behind it. You can tell that he really thought out the plan of what the audience was, who his target was, why he sought out history into making this reel. And I think that's really important. Choosing the right music is really important. I think it's easy one way to do this is to kind of see what's popular on the reels in the TikTok. You can kind of hear those, but maybe you want to add a voiceover, and that adds some differentiality to them as well. I also think it's really important. This one doesn't do it, but in reels, that knowing that your audience might not always have it on sound. And so if you want, it's really important to add little captions and make them readable for your audience. Engaging visuals. And I think it's really cool how he shows the story of his daughter on the operation now as well. And so another thing that they add in here is you can, on the post, I don't know if I'll be able to show it. He adds a call to action to come to their family's bull cell. And so making sure that those posts, when you post them on social media, there's intentionality and a call to action, inviting them to their bull cell or asking them to visit their website in the content. And maybe this for you is inviting them to engage with you in your comments and asking them to ask you questions about agriculture. Or maybe it's on Snapchat and your friends slide up on your story of you brushing your cow or different things like that. There's so many ways in your day-to-day operation that you can just make it very interactive. So I have a challenge for you guys in the next next month or over the next couple weeks. I encourage you to reflect on your why and incorporate it into your story or your sales pitch for your next interview or tell your story to a stranger. Maybe it's on the bus, or maybe it's your teacher. Make a social media post or reel with your elevator speech. Make sure it has a nice background and kind of shows what you do every day on your operation, or invite a classmate out to your operation and show them what you do after sports practice, or after or before you get up to for school each day, because you guys put in a lot of long hours, and I think it's awesome for them to see the work ethic that you all put out. And maybe for your older kids, it's researching a topic. Maybe you get the chance to do a research paper and do research about something on agriculture and teach your classmates about it. So I think I skipped over one of my slides about, but I would love to hear some of the ways you guys interact in the chat. If you guys want to comment in the chat about ways you interact with social media, some of your preferred platforms, and maybe a way that you've used social media to interact by telling your story. So if you guys have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Emily, there was some great engagement with your first question.
Yay.
Lots of people who've commented where they're from and how they talked about agriculture this week.
And I see one talking about like congratulation cards. I think those are so important. I think that's a unique way to interact with people, and just that intentionality. I think that's so intentional and great to do. People love receiving mail, even though we can receive information in so many different platforms now. So I think that's really cool.
And you guys, if you want to come off of mute and out loud, that's totally fine too. I know Emily asked what kind of social media platforms you like the best right now. How do you like to engage? Well, Addison's asking what your favorite platform is, Emily.
What's my favorite platform? I really still enjoy Instagram. I think that's a really good way to just share what you're doing on your operation. I use a lot of Facebook still. I think I'm in that kind of older gap that we use our Facebook. We have an operation page, our Redwood Cattle Company, and so we put a lot of information out there. But I have some really ornery kids right now, and I love sharing videos of them in the barn and different things like that on my Snapchat. So I kind of all over the place, but I think there's a lot of value in each one. And I think for for you guys and your interactions at school, like just showing what you're doing in the barn after school on your Snapchat, that's just a good way to reach those students that might not actually have any connection to livestock or what you do on a daily basis. And so I think that's a good avenue to and the right way to use it. I love hearing that all of you guys are talking. One thing that I think is really important about sharing your story, and I meant to mention this on the first slide, is at State Fair, when all those people maybe from the inner city are walking through the barns, just taking the time as they walk through your stalls to have that intentional conversation with them and maybe share that unique story or why you're doing what you're doing. Just understanding your why and sharing that with them. That is so important, because my family oftentimes has so many people that come by our stalls, and just making sure that you're going back to those first impressions, like your posture, you're being inviting and welcoming to their questions. I think that's just something super easy that sometimes we forget about because we get caught up in the motions of working with our projects and different things. That's just something easy we can do. And that's an impression that has a lasting impression on them. And maybe it's kids walking through and allowing them to pet your animal or different things. I think it's really important to do those little things at livestock shows like that, so that people have a good experience with agriculture, because that might be the only thing they get.
there's a question that asks, when you are talking about your operation on social media, what background music do you prefer and how do you know what to say?
Yeah. So when I use social media, I always do find when I like create a reel, we've been doing this a lot at K-State. Finding the perfect music is kind of, I feel like it's kind of the most challenging part. But I think it's really important to like kind of create the video first, of course, and then like see what the tone of the video is. So we recently just did one for our like welcome back tailgate at K-State, and we talked about like the end of summer, like it talking about summer and like it was just upbeat, welcoming. I think it's just important to kind of match the tone of it. And I think when in the reel that I just showed, like they matched the tone of like upbeat, but also like that kind of like history powerful. And so I think those are some ways to make sure um to emphasize on the different types of things going on throughout your reel. Um, I always kind of, what kind of background music do I prefer? I kind of like to leave lyrics out when it's an engaging video. So kind of just like upbeat music, especially when you're doing something about, when you're talking about your operation. Um, and how do you know what to say? I always like to develop a script and make sure that I've really have thought out the things that I'm going to put out there because they last out there forever. And then just scheduling out maybe some intentional posts around like certain holidays. And when you go to share your story, I think it's really important to talk about your why and why you're in this and why, like for me right now, I know it's changed over the years. It's because my kids, I want to see my kids involved in it and the work ethic. And so with each post, know why you're posting it. And that can kind of walk you through on how you should know what to say, because thinking about that end consumer, who's consuming your content and what you want them to know about your operation. And so when I think about my husband's operation, we do all the marketing for their family's bull sale. We're really big on like the consumer and the family's atmosphere it's like to buy bulls out there. And so that's what we really try to invite them into our everyday life. You guys have the resources at your fingertips with your phones. I know sometimes we all think we need these big fancy cameras and different things, but I think just use your phone, grab a picture, post it on, and people just love interacting with the day-to-day stuff. And so don't, I think quality is nice, and I think our phones have got us there. So just make sure you're just capturing the pictures in the moment and just posting your everyday life, because that's what the consumers really want to see. What is your most favorite reel you've made? Ooh. Hmm. I've made a lot of reels recently about my kids. I think that's really fun to just show the reels of like them in agriculture. We recently just made one for K-State Animal Science about our welcome back tailgate, and the students were dancing and they were eating ice cream. And I just love that because it just shows the atmosphere of K-State Animal Science. And so I think that's my favorite one we've kind of worked on recently, because um, I think anything to showcase um, excitement and the exciting leaders of our agriculture industry is what really excites me, and getting the opportunity to work with them is really fun. So, but I can't wait to see all the reels you guys come up with now. Make sure to send them
Emily,
my way. My email's there, so I'd love to see them.
I would say, Emily, where would they go if they wanted to see some of these reels that you've made? Like, what's the account called?
Yeah. So, I think some of the most recent reels I've worked on is on the K-State Animal Science count. Sorry for the background noise. So we're trying to kind of work on those. So I would check them out there, and give them a follow, and it's fun to see what the students are up to. So, oh, and Sheridan said her mom makes ILS videos. Yeah, I think it's so fun when you can incorporate like pictures of livestock, and different things into those reels, and yeah. Maybe make one and let your teacher show it at school. I think that would be fun. Show your classmates, a little show and tell.
Right, are there any other questions for Emily while she's here?
Oh, that's awesome, Annalise. Well, if you guys have any questions about social media or you'd want to give your sales pitch or your why to anyone, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to hear it anytime.
Great. Well, thank you, Emily. I want to extend a thank you on behalf of the Lead Challenge participants for being here tonight and giving your presentation. Hope everyone is able to think about their why and be able to share agriculture with some new people this week or in the coming months.
Yeah.
So before we close out today, I just want to give a couple reminders, Lead Challenge wise, since this is the last time we'll talk virtually before the show weekend. The reminder to fill out your participation survey, which is on the Kansas Junior Livestock Show website, right where you found the links to watch these videos. We're posting the recordings the day after, so tomorrow morning, which would be Friday morning, the 20th, this last one will be up and you'll be able to watch them all. There's also sign up links for your prepared speech time slots, as well as your mock job interview time slots. So if you could sign up for those times on Friday and Saturday, that would help us out with scheduling purposes. You don't have to stick to that exact time. We understand that shows can run early, they can run behind. You might need to help a sibling with a different class. So just keep us in the loop if you're gonna be late or you need to switch a time slot around. We'll send out some contact information in the coming days on how you can get in contact with us during the weekend without having to walk all the way over to the Pride of Kansas building. But other than that, I think those are all of our reminders before the show weekend. We hope to see you guys all down in Hutchinson next weekend. Thank you, everybody.
Good luck, everyone at KJLS.